Bernie Sanders recently announced a fairly large change to his marijuana policy, and it certainly caught the crowd by surprise, which you're going to see in this clip.
In my view, the time is long overdue for us to remove the federal prohibition on marijuana.
Come on, that's awesome.
That's so bad.
He was dozing.
Yeah.
I know.
He was like,
this boring old white guy.
Why am I here?
Lily led economic inequality. Oh my God!
What?
Yeah, and I think that that's a reasonable reaction to have, because this is one of the issues that in the past I think that Bernie Sanders had been sort of out of step with. He had said, oh, well, it's not a big issue in Vermont, and maybe we'll look into it, but it's certainly not going to be one of the priorities of my administration.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was trying to be reasonable, but we're not looking for someone to potentially look into it someday. We've been looking into it. We've had the experiment now in several states, increasing number every year. We understand what effect it has, and those states, so far as I know, have not burned down yet. Yep. They're simply generating millions of dollars every year in money that then will go to the education system. And so that we have the experiment, we have the results, we need to change it nationally. And he's a reasonable man, and so now he's changing it.
And it's not just that. I mean, the truth of the matter is you saw that young man's oh shit face. And of course you have this initial, yes, I get to smoke weed legally maybe. But I think beyond that, there's a deeper understanding that when the wheels start turning about, I have a 1 in 10 chance of going to prison in my lifetime. I know somebody who is incarcerated for marijuana. This has a real effect on the status of young black people across the country, and I think that's important.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with that. I mean, there's 2.3 million people behind bars in this country. It's the largest of any country in the world, right?
It's crazy.
Of that number, 500,000, so 500,000, are for drug-related offences, and of that number, a large proportion are for minor, what I would term minor infractions, whatever,
and a lot of
whatever you
marijuana,
want. It's not necessarily marijuana, but they're minor drug offences. So when we talk about overcrowding in the population, when you talk about stigmatization, when you talk about, and the other thing to remember is that I can't remember the stat off the top of my head, but it's the disproportionality between people of color to be incarcerated for a minor infraction versus Caucasians to be incarcerated for a minor infraction are vast.
That Coke versus crack
It's something like 5 to 1.
Yeah.
So when you start to think of that, it has, over and above his joyous face, it has very real economic, socio-economic infrastructure, ramifications. And then you add in all your eloquent points about revenue, tax revenue, saving money on trying to enforce laws that really nobody cares about and that people are disregarding.
Yeah.
I mean, it just goes
wrecking
on.
people's economic futures when they finally do get out of prison, in some cases losing the ability to vote.
Losing the ability to get funding to go to college.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't that insane? You go to prison for a minor drug offense, and now you don't qualify for federal student aid.
Yeah.
The people who need it the most can't get money to go to college.
Exactly. And in many of the areas that you talked about, I think that the Obama administration deserved at least a little bit of credit, because they had I'm not going to be able to remember the name of it, but they set up a special board to investigate some of the inequalities in sentencing and things like that based on which drug you used, what area you were in. And for a couple of years, that churned along, and they put out some recommendations. And now the disparity between crack and cocaine has been virtually eliminated for the most part. And just recently, you might have been on the show when we talked about this, there was the single largest shortening of sentences at the same time. And in the very near future, something like 40,000 nonviolent drug offender sentences are being cut short because of the recommendations of this panel, which not all of the credit can go to Barack Obama, but at least part of it can.
Yeah, big changes in mandatory minimums.
Exactly.
Really important, yeah.
Exactly. And a lot of this stuff is extremely overdue, and we need to feel like the next president is going to not only continue it, but to rev it up. And I don't know about Hillary Clinton, but at the very least, Bernie Sanders is doing the right thing.